I was ashamed of my worn-out dress. Then a billionaire changed my life. With a dance, I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other day, sticky with the heat of summer and filled with promises of a better tomorrow. But for me, that tomorrow felt impossibly far away. I stood in front of the cracked mirror, my fingers trembling as they brushed against the frayed hem of my dress. The fabric hung loosely on my bony frame, faded and threadbare. Tears prickled at the corner of my eyes. I could almost hear the whispers of judgment from the crowd outside. "Look at that girl. Can't even afford a decent dress." What did it matter that I had worked 2 jobs just to scrape by? I felt like a ghost, drifting through a world filled with shadows. My family was struggling. My mother worked double shifts at the diner, her hands always red and sore. My little brother, Ethan, deserved better. He was brilliant, with dreams bigger than this tiny town. I wanted to be his hero, to lift him up and show him the stars. But here I was, cloaked in misery and a dress that screamed inadequacy. As I stepped outside, the world spun strangely around me, every laughter amplified, every smile a dagger to my heart. I walked down the street, my shoes scuffing the ground, each step heavy with doubt. The air was thick, buzzing with curiosity and unspoken words. I could feel their eyes on me, like hot coals digging into my skin. Then he appeared, Jack. He swept into the scene like a whirlwind, all confidence and vitality. The moment our eyes met, he froze. The bustling crowd faded into a soft murmur, the sounds of life blur in the background. He grinned that heart-stopping, $1,000,000 smile that made my breath hitch. "What brings you here, gorgeous?" he said, his voice smooth like honey, cutting through the tension. I felt my heart race, pulses thrumming in my ears. I wanted to laugh, to tell him it was just a dance, but the weight of my dress felt heavier than ever. In an instant, the world shifted. Jack reached for my hand, the softness of his fingers brushing against my calloused skin. "Dance with me," he urged, pausing only for a second, waiting for my answer. Around us, the crowd began to swirl like a kaleidoscope of colors. The air crackled with anticipation. The music played, melodies swirling through the air, beckoning me closer. I hesitated, shame gripping me tight. I could feel the weight of their eyes, the judgment mixed with awe as they watched this billionaire and the girl in the worn-out dress. What was happening? I was a nobody, and he was everything. The distance between us fused in that moment, drawing the breath from my lungs, and all I could do was blink, trembling with uncertainty. Then Jack stepped closer, his face inscrutable, that magnetic smile unwavering. "Just one dance. That is all I ask." Would I take that leap? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The music wrapped around me, a tantalizing promise of freedom and joy, yet the shame anchored me. I stood there, trembling like a leaf in the wind, caught between a desire to escape and an overwhelming wish to transcend my worries, even if just for a moment. Jack's gaze remained fixed on me, unwavering, as if he could see beyond the fabric of my dress and into the tempest of my heart. "Just one dance," he repeated softly, as though it held the power to evaporate the insecurities swirling within me. My mouth went dry, and the pavement beneath my feet began to feel like a trap rather than solid ground. Would dancing with him ignite hope, or would it only serve to magnify my inadequacies in front of everyone? Every nerve in my body screamed to retreat. The whispers from the crowd crawled back, echoing doubts, that had become part of me. How could I, a girl with nothing but fraying seams and empty pockets, dare take the spotlight? But then Jack took an experimental step forward, and in doing so, the world shifted once more. A doorway opening into the uncharted. I whispered, barely audible, "I can't, why not?" His voice was a warm embrace, anchoring me against the bribe of despair. "You deserve this." There was a raw sincerity in his eyes. I saw a reflection of what I wished I could be: brave, unyielding, an emblem of beauty rather than a target for scorn. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of something more profound than dance. Maybe it was hope, flickering like a candle in the shadows. I took a deep breath, the stale air filling my lungs as I finally stepped forward, closing the space between us. The crowd held their collective breath as our fingers intertwined, igniting warmth that spread through me like wildfire. His gentle grin was instantly contagious. I felt lighter, as if the weight of judgment evaporated just by being near him. "No turning back now," he said, laughter bubbling beneath his words as he twirled me into the center of the gathering. The music swelled, vibrant and alive, wrapping around us like a cocoon. I wanted to laugh, to allow myself the joy I'd buried deep inside, yet the nagging voice continued to linger. This all felt too fleeting, too perfect. As we moved together, something within me unlocked. Jack was a whirlwind, full of life and laughter, his presence electric, and I followed his lead, surrendering to the rhythm. My worries melted away with every turn and sway of our bodies, illuminating shadows that had clung to my heart for far too long. In that dance, I was more than a girl in a worn dress. I was a part of something beautiful, even if just for a fleeting moment. But then tragedy struck. In the periphery, the allure of our moment was shattered by the distant wail of sirens echoing through the streets. The music continued to play, a bittersweet backdrop to the tension that filled the air. My heart dropped as I realized the sound was coming from the direction of my home, the diner, where my mother worked late into the night. Apprehension gripped my stomach like a vice. "Jack," I whispered, panic rising like a tide. "I need to go, something's wrong." His expression shifted instantly, concern replacing the playful gleam in his eyes. "Let us go," he said, taking my hand and breaking us from the crowd, his powerful strides cutting through the murmurs. With every step toward the sirens, dread began to weave through my veins, binding tight with uncertainty. I needed to be strong for Ethan, to be there for my mother. But as we turned the corner, the sight that met our eyes was heart-stopping. Flames danced hungrily from the diner's windows, casting an orange glow that bathed everything in a surreal light. "No, Mom!" My voice trembled, disbelief fighting against the knots in my stomach. I let go of Jack's hand, racing forward as the fire crackled in fierce defiance. Frantic thoughts swirled in my head, each one darker than the last. I felt Jack catch up to me, his hand guiding me back even as I fought against it. "We can't go in there," he shouted over the din. "The fire department will be here soon." But I didn't hear him. I could see the faces of the onlookers, the fire's reflection mirrored in their eyes, a macabre show unfolding before us. With heart pounding wildly, I pushed through the crowd gathering at the edge of the sidewalk, desperation fueling my every step. Just then, amidst the chaos, one face emerged from the throng, a silhouette I would never forget. Ethan crouched on the ground, eyes wide and terrified, clutching a charred rafter from the building's remains. He was all right, but in that moment, I felt something snap within me. Hope wavered like the flames, sharp with uncertainty. I reached for him. "Ethan!" I turned back to search for Jack, but in that sea of relatives and frantic firefighters, he was gone, leaving me alone in a world that felt terrifying and expansive. A voice roared inside me: would I be able to save them both, or would everything I loved go up in smoke just as surely as the diner? I was the girl in a worn-out dress, grasping for hope amidst the flames, desperate to pull together the fragile threads of my life. Little did I know that the fire was only the beginning of chaos yet to unfold. The acrid smell of smoke filled the air, thick and suffocating, as I pushed through the growing crowd. An unmistakable weight bore down on my chest. Every heartbeat echoed a painful reminder of how quickly life could spiral out of control. Moments ago, I had experienced a joy I thought was beyond my reach, and now, all I could feel was a sense of being utterly unmoored. My eyes darted frantically over the faces in the crowd, desperately searching for any sign of reassurance, and my heart sank deeper when I realized Jack had vanished into the sea of chaos. He had been my anchor, a lighthouse against the crashing waves of self-doubt. Without him, I felt adrift, just another girl in a worn dress, who didn't know how to navigate a storm. "Ethan!" I called again, my voice nearly lost in the cacophony of cries and shouts. My brother's huge eyes met mine, a flicker of recognition cutting through his fear. Relief washed over me, mixed with an urgency that pushed me further through the throng. I crossed to him, kneeling in front of my little brother, and instinct took over. I wrapped him in a fierce embrace, feeling his small body trembling against me. "Is it okay? Is Mom okay?" he stammered, the words tumbling from his lips in a whirlwind of anxiety. "I don't know," I admitted, my heart pounding wildly at the admission. All I could offer him was the strength of my arms, the reassurance of my presence. "But we're together, and that's what matters." As I held him tightly, I watched the firefighters arrive, their red trucks piercing through my haze of concern. They leaped out, focused and determined, strong in their resolve. The sight ignited a flicker of hope in my heart. Maybe they would save her. Maybe my mother was inside, fighting her own battle even now. The thought carried me through the suffocating despair, and I grasped onto it like a lifeline. The chaos continued to unfold around us. I could hear the distant wail of sirens, the frantic chatter of onlookers, and the desperate calls from emergency responders. I wanted to scream my mother's name, to tear through the fabric of this nightmare and pull her back to safety, but I was trapped in place, a captive to the circumstances that surrounded me. Suddenly, I felt a gentle squeeze on my shoulder, and I turned to find a woman standing beside me, her expression softening as she crouched down to meet Ethan's terrified gaze. "Hey there, buddy," she said, her voice calming, like a balm on a wound. "You're going to be all right. We're going to get your mom, I promise." Ethan's little hand found hers, and I felt a sense of gratitude flicker in the midst of my fear. "You think so?" he asked, hope threading delicately through his voice. "I know so," she replied, her words washing over us like a gentle tide. "These brave firefighters are trained for this. They deal with fires every day and have a way of making things right." Her warmth, along with the unmistakable strength of her belief, forged a tiny glimmer of hope in my heart. Maybe we wouldn't lose everything. Maybe the world wouldn't end in flames tonight. As I pulled Ethan closer, a spark of understanding illuminated within me. The dance was not over. Perhaps the grace of movement could transcend the very chaos surrounding us. Releasing Ethan slightly, I glanced back toward the diner, begging to be let into the narrative unfolding inside. My gaze searched relentlessly for the figure of my mother, hoping she would step through the smoke, untouched and magnetic as before. The fire raged on, belching out plumes of black smoke, and I felt fear swell once more, an unwelcome presence. What if she didn't make it? Would I have to face the truth that my desperate dreams of a joyous future had been nothing more than illusions of wonder, drifting away as the embers from our home turned to ash? Just then, Jack reappeared, his face alive with an intensity that made my heart skip. "I found the owner," he yelled, drawing closer, as the urgency of his voice penetrated deep into the fog of my despair. "They said the back exit was still clear." "Mom, she's in there?" I asked, trembling with fear and the flicker of that stubborn hope. No, but she was seen heading toward that exit earlier." His eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment, everything paused. Time, chaos, and fear slipped into the background, leaving only Jack and the glimmer of possibility that hung in the air. "Come on. We have to go now." He motioned at the entrance, and before I even had the chance to process my thoughts, he grabbed my hand, pulling me towards the inferno. It felt both reckless and necessary, and I surrendered myself to the instinct pushing us forward. "Wait!" I shouted back to Ethan, whose gaze was filled with fear, desperation lighting up his childlike features. "Stay close to this lady," I implored, pushing him toward the compassionate woman who had approached us moments before. "Don't move until I come back." But as Jack and I dashed forward, flames licked higher, arching ominously, and with every step, the heat grew more intense. I glimpsed the hurried figures of the firefighters and felt the adrenaline coursing through me. Maybe we could save her. A rush of determination surged as I thought of my mother, her laughter, her love. Then, just as we reached the alcove of broken bricks leading to the back exit, the structure groaned ominously, and I felt the ground shake. In that split second, as I turned to look at Jack, I saw him slip, his steps faltering just as another explosion erupted from within the diner, a flash of blinding light consuming the entrance ahead. "No! Jack!" I screamed, reaching toward him just as smoke swallowed everything. My heart raced, panic descending like a heavy fog, and in that instant, I realized I might not only lose my mother, but the only lifeline I had found in this tumultuous sea. We had danced briefly under a veil of hope, but now I was marching into an abyss of chaos, praying that the next step wouldn't be our last. The smoke curled around me like a suffocating blanket, its rawness tearing at my throat and making every breath feel like a laborious task. I barely registered the chaos around me, my world narrowing down to the singular thought of Jack and the sudden flash of the explosion. The air vibrated with the sound, a jarring reminder of the precariousness of life. "Jack!" I cried out again, the word cutting through the noise. My heart pounded in my chest, fear clawing at my insides. I felt a burning need to go back, to find him amidst the swirling darkness, but a heavy weight anchored me to the spot. Across the tumultuous scene, I caught a glimpse of Ethan. The fear etched on his face mirrored my own, and it only deepened my resolve. "Stay with her," I yelled back toward the compassionate woman who had been at his side. I could feel her equally terrified gaze on me, yet there was strength in her presence. "I'll be right back." With every instinct pulled to protect my brother, I fought against the instinct to flee. I needed to be strong for him. Jack, my lifeline, my partner in all things reckless, had been swallowed whole by that blast. No matter how many voices screamed in my head to turn back, a stubborn flicker of hope kept me charging ahead. I had seen his determination. I'd seen the fire in his eyes. He wouldn't let me down. Refusing to succumb to despair, I pressed forward, desperation fueling my every step. I dodged fragments of debris, the universe around me shifting with each move. "Jack, where are you?" I whispered, half expecting him to materialize out of the smoke like a hero in an old fairy tale. The heat pulsed, and through the haze, I spotted the entrance. If I could just reach it, I could pull him to safety. Suddenly, I heard a voice hoarse but familiar. "Luna! Over here!" Relief washed over me as Jack's figure emerged from the shadows of the building, disheveled but alive, scrambling toward me. "Thank God!" I gasped, swallowing the fear that threatened to choke me. "I thought I had lost you." My voice broke on the last word, and the relief mingled with the ever-present fear of what was happening all around us. He shook his head, urgency clouding his features. "We have to go. The building isn't stable." I barely had time to process before he wrapped his arm around my shoulder, guiding me toward a safer path. Just then, a piercing scream cut through the chaos from behind us, freezing my steps. My heart clenched tightly, and I turned to see Ethan, small and alone, still standing where I had left him, eyes wide with terror. "Mama!" he cried, the sheer desperation in his voice breaking through the chaos. The cry reverberated in my chest like a bell tolling a warning. No! This time it wasn't just fear. It was a palpable rage against the helplessness of the unfolding nightmare. "Ethan!" I shouted, fighting against the urge to bolt back into that fiery inferno. "Stay where you are. You're safe. I'll come to you." Jack's grip tightened as he tried to coax me away, but no force on this earth could break the bond of urgency that pulled me back. "We can't leave him," I cried, my voice a war cry against the flame-ridden landscape. Suddenly, the woman who had comforted Ethan moments before appeared beside him, extending her hands in a calming gesture. "Sweetheart, come to me. I'll keep you safe." Her voice was steady, a contrast to the chaos surrounding us. Something serene flickered within me. Perhaps, despite everything, there were still relationships being forged, fragile but real. "Go save him!" "I'll help Ethan," Jack shouted, and I felt the weight of his desperation. I didn't hesitate. The moment confidence flashed in his eyes was enough to spur me forward. Nearing my little brother, I knelt down to swallow the couple of steps that still lay between us. "Ethan, I need you to trust me," I said, urgency lacing my voice. "Can you do that for me? Just listen." He nodded, tears streaming down his cheeks, shaking beneath the weight of his fear. "I want you, Luna." "I want to go home, I know," I said softly, as the ground beneath us trembled once more. "You'll be home soon. Just hold on to that lady, and don't let go. You're brave, my heart. I need you to be brave for me." As I turned to run back towards Jack, my heart felt as if it would burst. I glanced over my shoulder, reassured by the scene of the two of them, her arms around Ethan, whispering promises of safety. With renewed determination, I sprinted toward Jack. We had to get out. But just when I thought we might escape, the ground rumbled violently, sending us both crashing to the pavement, the world spinning around us. "Luna, are you okay?" Jack's frantic voice pulled me from the momentary daze, and I looked at him, breathless, the flames casting dancing shadows across his face. "I'm fine," I gasped, grappling to steady my heartbeat. But just as I grasped onto the certainty I craved, a new fear clawed at me. The shifting structure of the diner groaned ominously, the walls beginning to warp and buckle under the intensity of the fire. "It's coming down," Jack shouted, and that S when I heard it, the crack of wood splintering violently, and just like that, the ground beneath the diner imploded, bringing the world crashing around us in a deafening roar. "Run!" I screamed, but in a sweep of disaster, the floor crumbled, sending echoes of what-ifs through my mind. I caught a glimpse of a figure darting through the flames toward us, a figure dressed in my mother's favorite lavender floral dress. But it was too late. All I could see was darkness as the building engulfed her, the sound of her laughter slowly fading. "No! Mom!" I screamed, an anguish breaking free from the depths of my heart. The reality of losing everything hit me like a wave, suffocating and absolute, and any hope I had of survival began to drown in despair amidst the tides of smoke and flame. As Jack pulled me to my feet, the fire blazed behind us, consuming everything we loved. The hope of laughter, the warmth of home, and with its wrath, it wove a new story, one that might just shatter everything we had once known. I blinked through the smoke, fighting back tears, knowing with each painful breath that nothing might ever be the same again. The world around us was reduced to a background hum, a desperate symphony of tragedy that echoed through my bones. The flames roared with an insatiable hunger, taking everything I had ever known and cherished. After what felt like an eternity, I finally looked into Jack's eyes, and saw panic mirrored there. The smudged lines of soot on his face could not mask the sheer terror that enveloped us. "Luna, focus." His voice sliced through the haze. "We need to get out of here." Now. The weight of grief sat like lead in my chest, yet in that moment, survival became imperative. I nodded, forcing myself to breathe through the smoke that radiated from behind us, the oppressive heat threatening to swallow us whole. With a grip of steel, I grasped Jack's arm, and together we stumbled forward through the wreckage. Each step seemed laborious, as if the ground itself sought to drag us back into the chaos. Fragments of memories, laughter, and warmth crashed down like the debris surrounding us. I could still hear Ethan's cries, lingering in my mind even as we moved. Would he be okay? The thought sent a fresh pang of sorrow through my heart. Suddenly, a hand reached out from the shadows out of the corner of my eye. I caught a glimpse of the woman who had comforted Ethan. She stood, swaying slightly, her face strain-lined yet resolute. "This way," she cried, her voice cutting through the smoke like a lifeline. Before I could question her, she turned, and instinctively we followed. We ducked under exposed beams and sidestepped jagged shards of glass, the walls whispering secrets of loss that tore at the fraying edges of my heart. "Keep moving," Jack urged, and though panic pulsed in my veins, an ember of determination flickered within me. With every labored breath, I pushed through the haze. I couldn't let fear dictate my future. Finally, we burst through a doorway into an outside world that felt surreal, almost like an oasis. The cacophony sounded distant, muffled by my own whirling thoughts. I saw Ethan in the distance, still safe and in the woman's arms, silently clutching the lapel of her coat. The sight filled me with uncontainable relief, a reminder of what was most precious to me. "Ethan!" I shouted, but just as I attempted to step forward, the ground trembled beneath me once again. My heart dropped as I paused in horror somewhere nearby. A structure groaned under the pressure of the flames, its crumbling walls conspiring to take more from us. "Luna!" Jack's voice broke through. He pulled me toward him, forcing me to look at him straight in the eye. "We have to go now. We can't lose you too." The conviction in his voice both anchored and terrified me. What if this was it? I couldn't face losing him, or Ethan, or anyone else that mattered. But the desire to go back, to save those still trapped in the flames, clawed at my soul. The woman's voice broke through once more, beckoning me. "Luna, he needs you. Come on." Her outstretched hand seemed to shine with hope amidst the wreckage. With a final glance at Jack, 1,000 unspoken words hung between us: fear, love, desperation. "We can't leave anyone behind," I pleaded, my heart warring with my mind. "I know," he said, his brow furrowed with worry. "But we can't help them if we don't survive ourselves." His grip on my arm tightened, grounding me in the moment. Reluctantly, I tore my gaze from him and sprinted toward Ethan, urgency propelling me faster than I ever thought possible. He stumbled toward me, relief flooding his eyes, as he wrapped his tiny arms around my waist. "I thought I had lost you, Luna. I was so scared." His tears soaked into my dress, ripped and tattered, a testament to our struggle. "I'm here now, baby," I whispered, choking back my own sobs. "I'm here. We'll get through this together. I promise." But as I stood there, the foundation beneath our feet quaked violently once more, dislodging a heavy beam that came crashing down mere feet away from us. My heart leapt. An instinct kicked in. I snatched Ethan close and thrust him behind me, shielding him as adrenaline coursed through my veins. "Run!" I yelled at Jack, who was still frozen in shock, and in that instant I saw him finally comprehend the impending danger. He took off toward us, but the walls we had barely escaped from were already crumbling, consuming remnants of what was once a home, a refuge, an anchor in this chaotic world. Ethan trembled against me, his small frame quaking with fear, a stark reminder of all we had lost. Just as I feared this moment would crush us, the woman lifted him onto her hip, freeing me to sprint toward Jack. But just as I extended my hand to take his, a crack shattered the air like gunfire. The building's spine seemed to split, and in a horrifying twist of fate, Jack was thrown back by the force of the collapsing debris, his form vanishing into the clouds of smoke. "Jack!" I screamed, my voice splintering in my throat. I felt Ethan's small hands grip my arms, his terrified eyes mirroring my own horror. "There is nothing we can do," the woman shouted, the urgent weight of her voice snapping me from my stupor. That was the moment dread clawed its way into my chest, a truth I dreaded to face. With burgeoning fear engulfing me, I had to make a choice to flee or to fight for what felt like an intangible hope. "Help him, please! We have to save him!" I cried out, desperation spilling from my lips like venom. But when I looked back, ghosts swirled in the distance, and all I could see was destruction. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath us once more. Thrusting Ethan from my arms, I lunged forward, but everything slipped from my grasp, a helpless dance with fate as the world around us disintegrated into ash and echoes of lost laughter. The last image I could perceive was the all-consuming smoke, the laughter of what once was, mixing with the all-encompassing silence of the aftermath. Jack, perhaps caught in a limbo of hope or despair. And with a single tear tracing down my cheek, I succumbed to the inevitable darkness of the unknown, knowing we would either emerge as ashes or gather strength against this relentless storm. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid scent of charred memories, as Ethan and I stood on the precipice of despair amidst the ruins of our lives. Laughter once filled these walls. There had been playdates, birthday parties, and the innocent joy of shared moments. Now, all lay in shambles, a painful reminder of everything that had been taken from us. Ethan clutched my hand tightly, the tiny fingers barely wrapping around my trembling palm. As the wails of sirens approached, I felt the distant pulse of adrenaline starting to subside, replaced by the overwhelming weight of loss. Jack's absence loomed large, a shadow threatening to consume me whole. Where was he? Was he safe? The questions knotted tightly, suffocating my thoughts like the smoke that still clung to the air around us. I couldn't shake the image of him, locked in a battle against the flames while I was forced into a retreat. "Mom?" Ethan's voice trembled, a small beacon piercing through my fog of despair. His wide, frightened eyes searched mine, his innocence remaining buoyant in a world that had turned merciless. The pain of his fear mirrored the pit deep inside my own soul. In that moment, I felt stripped of everything but the urgent need to comfort him. "I'm right here, sweetheart," I said, crouching to his level, swallowing down the lump lodged in my throat. "We are going to be okay. I promise." Even as I spoke, the words felt heavy, a thin veneer of hope draping over an unbearable uncertainty. Within moments, they arrived, firefighters rushing in, their faces set in grim determination. They moved with practiced precision, but even their robust presence couldn't quell the anxiety that twisted in my gut. The chaos surrounding us blurred into a frantic whirl, tinged with the darkness of loss. I fumbled in my pockets, clawing for my phone. Perhaps, somehow, I could reach Jack. With trembling fingers, I hit dial, praying as the phone rang. Come on, each ring echoed the ruptured rhythm of my heart. I needed to hear his voice, needed some semblance of reassurance that he was still there, battling against the tide of despair. Yet, as the call went to voicemail, a cold chill swept through me. Luna, the woman who had saved Ethan, stepped forward, her face softening as she crouched beside us. "We need to move you to safety. I know it's scary, but we have to go. The firefighters will look for everyone still inside." Her voice was soothing, a quiet strength amidst our turmoil. Ethan turned his gaze to her, uncertainty clouding his young face. "But what about Jack? Why isn't he here?" His voice was small, but it pierced through the noise around us. I recoiled, the enormity of his question weighing down like a stone. "He'll come, darling. He has to," he promised. My voice cracked, and the floodgates of tears began to open. I couldn't imagine giving Ethan a complete answer, not when I myself was too great at predicting a future laced with shadows. But as the woman continued to guide us away, a soft voice chimed through the chaos. "Luna!" I turned, breath catching in my throat as I recognized one of Jack's colleagues emerging through the smoke. His shirt, somewhat singed, billowed behind him as he waved frantically, relief washing over his weary features. "I found him. He is safe, a bit injured, but safe." The sweet taste of hope ignited in my heart a flicker in the dark. "Where? Where is he?" I urged, pulling Ethan close. Jack's colleague gestured urgently to a gathering of emergency responders at the far end of the parking lot. "He is over there, being treated. They're assessing him. Come on." Ethan and I rushed forward, my heart pounding in a chaotic rhythm as I veered toward the glimmer of hope beckoning in the twilight of despair. But as we approached, I realized Jack was sitting on the pavement, cradling his arm with a strained expression that told me more than words could. "Jack!" I yelled, rushing to him, wrapping my arms around his shoulders. He felt solid and warm against me, but there was an unmistakable fragility that crept into our embrace. I pulled back slightly, taking in his soot-streaked face, marred with exhaustion and pain. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," he managed a weak smile, but the shadows under his eyes betrayed him. "Just a little banged up. Had a close call, that's all." Ethan slid in beside us, relief evident on his face. "We were so worried," he exclaimed, his tiny voice breaking with emotion. Jack regarded him with a gentleness that melted my heart. "Hey buddy, it's okay. I'm right here." He reached out, tousling Ethan's hair, but under the warm brush of his hand, I noticed the tremor, how each movement was laced with the pain of recoil. For just a moment, the chaos beyond us faded. It was just us, a family reunited amidst the wreckage. Yet, the eerie stillness of the aftermath cradled a darkness I was hesitant to confront, the thought of what could have happened gnawing at my mind. "Listen," Jack began, voice dropping to a whisper. "I need to tell you something." But before he could continue, a wave of paramedics swept past us, urgency radiating away from our fragile reunion. My heart sank as a commotion erupted further down the street, a scream, sharp and desperate, cutting through the heavy air like a knife. "Mom, what is that?" Ethan's innocent inquiry rang out, but in that moment, I couldn't frame an answer. My pulse quickened as dread settled like ice in my veins. "Let South just stay close, okay?" I replied, but even to my own ears, my voice sounded shaky, uncertain. We had survived together. We could not be shaken apart now. I looked to Jack, worry etched upon his features, but he remained steadfast, offering me strength as I gathered mine. But just as soon as I tried to summon the flicker of hope, the scream pierced the tranquility of our small fortress once more, escalating in terror. It sent a shiver down my spine, a warning that within the chaos, danger still lurked, waiting, hungry to claim more. Before I could process, I turned once more to Jack, a slow realization dawning. He held my gaze, his expression a mix of concern and resolve. "There is something I need to tell you, Luna, about the fire, about what I saw." Time hung suspended as I locked eyes with him, a myriad of emotions swirling beneath the surface. And just like that, the world around us felt like it was crumbling all over again as the urgency of the moment surged to the forefront, each second echoing with the promise of unearthed truths yet to be unveiled. The tension in the air was suffocating as I held Jack's gaze, my heart racing in anticipation of the unknown. The chaos around us faded, isolating us in a bubble of uncertainty that pulsed with the weight of unspoken words. I could feel Ethan's small hand tightly clutching my sleeve, grounding me even as the world spun wildly out of control. "Jack, what is it?" I urged, struggling to keep my voice steady. His brow furrowed, and the flicker of vulnerability in his eyes made my stomach churn. "It's not just the fire," he started, but before he could continue, The piercing scream erupted again, echoing down the street. An ambulance's siren wailed to life, slicing through the air with a desperation that mirrored the turmoil within me. My instincts surged high, urging me to shield Ethan from the horrors threatening to breach our fragile moment. Maybe we should check if they need help, I stammered, unwilling to confront whatever he had to say. Jack, however, shook his head slowly, his gaze unwavering. Luna, listen to me. I think the fire was deliberate. His voice was low but steady, puncturing through my haze of confusion. I saw someone. They were. He hesitated, and I could see the way his mind wrestled with the memories, dark and jagged. Beneath the weight of his revelation, the ground felt unsteady, a deep chasm opening beneath us. The idea that someone could have ignited this horror, that it was not merely an accident, but rather an act sown from malice sent a chill through me. Deliberate? What do you mean? I stammered, grasping for clarity in the fog of dread that swirled. I saw a figure moving through the smoke, just before the flames erupted. They looked like they were setting something. He swallowed hard, as though he could hardly believe the truth he was presenting. I didn't see their face, but I could feel that something was off. Fear clawed at my insides. I had never thought that our lives could be marred by something so sinister. We need to tell the police. Jack, they need to know Luna. He interrupted, his voice raising slightly in urgency. We can't. Not yet. The intensity of his gaze cut through me, demanding my attention. I need to gather more evidence. We need to make sure Ethan is safe first. Ethan stood between us, his small stature a steady reminder of what was at stake. I knelt beside him, forcing a smile through the storm of emotions wreaking havoc in my mind. I'm going to get you some water, okay? Just wait here with Dad. I didn't wait for an answer. As I turned to walk away, the murmur of the crowd filtered through the cacophony around me, an array of emotions laid bare. Some were crying, some were shouting toward the responders, and others were huddled together, whispering hushed fears of what had just transpired. I found a small table covered in debris, and snatched up a plastic cup, filled it with water, and returned to where I had left Jack and Ethan. But when I arrived, my heart dropped at the sight before me. Their expressions mirrored anxiety and unspoken dread. Jack's hand gripped Ethan's shoulder tightly, his face pale and stricken. Jack, what happened? I said, panic rising in my throat. Luna, someone's gone missing. A little girl, I think. His voice cracked, and each word felt like another weight added to my already burdened heart. They called it in. I just heard them say it's been too long. In that moment, my world felt like it was shattering again. Could we really live in a world where people vanished, swallowed by flames and fear? What do we do? I whispered, my voice trembling as I approached, unsure if I could bear the weight of more loss. We keep Ethan close. We stay alert, he replied, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. And we don't leave until we find out that girl is safe. Ethan looked up at us, wide-eyed and confused, the world of adults swirling around him too chaotic and surreal. Is she going to be okay? He asked, his innocence slicing sharper than any blade. The question hung heavily, and I felt powerless to ease his worry. Of course, sweet pea. They're searching for her now, and they're really good at that, I said, trying to inject a sense of calm into the storm brewing inside me. Just then, we heard the anguished wail again, this time accompanied by the frantic footsteps of a panicked mother sprinting toward a group of responders nearby. My instinct as a mother ignited, and I felt the urge to go to her, to comfort her in a way I wish someone would comfort me in this moment of despair. Luna, maybe we should stay here, I interrupted Jack's hushed voice, stepping away. I moved closer to the woman, but before I could reach her, I stumbled upon a charred backpack lying abandoned on the ground. Instinct spasmed through me, and without thinking, I bent down to pick it up. In that horrifying moment, the echo of a child's laughter hit me, piercing through the memories like a lance to my heart. My breath caught painfully as I opened the backpack and found a small teddy bear, its fluffy exterior scorched and stained. The mere sight of it ignited a haunting sense of dread. I turned back toward Jack, my heart racing. Jack, this is hers. I need to find, but Jack's grip on my arm tightened, eyes wide with fear. Luna, wait. We need to call the police. We can't just assume. His voice faded as the overwhelming sensation of dread washed over me, a dark tide pulling me under. I glanced back towards the chaos, only to see the mother collapsing to her knees in despair, the echoes of cries mixing with the sirens blaring around us. "Mommy!" Ethan squeaked, gripping my waist tight. I could feel his fear vibrating through our connection, and it started to tug at the corners of my sanity. My heart raced faster, and there it was again, the flicker of urgency in Jack's eyes, that same protective instinct making him grow tense beside me. "Luna, we need to move. We don't know if the fire was really an accident." As the reality of his words struck me, the air grew colder. The darkness surrounding us became tangible, and in the distance, towering flames flickered back to life, swallowed whole by the night. Before I could process my fear, Jack pulled me closer, his voice urgent. "Let us go, Luna. We can't wait for answers here." But just as we began to move away, a flash of light illuminated the ground in front of us. A piece of paper, singed at one edge, fluttered in the breeze like a damning piece of evidence, and suddenly I felt the chill of recognition sweep through my bones. "No!" I gasped, but it was too late. Jack had already picked it up, and the moment his eyes fell upon it, understanding etched deeper lines onto his face. "MOM!" Ethan cried, and I turned, rejecting the growing dread circling my mind. I clutched my son tightly, knowing that whatever Jack was about to reveal would change everything. But as I looked at the paper, words burned into memory like a brand. "I know what you did." It was a warning, a threat that sent tremors through my heart. And suddenly, the darkness wasn't just around us, it was within us, pulling tighter with every second, and I realized with a dawning horror that our fight for safety was only just beginning. The air was heavy, pregnant with the unspoken fear that had settled like a thick fog around us. I stared at the note in Jack's hand, as if it were a living thing capable of spilling its secrets in a whisper. "I know what you did." The words seemed to vibrate in my mind, threatening to unleash a torrent of memories long buried, and I felt the edges of my reality begin to fray. "What does it mean, Jack?" My voice came out thinner than I intended, barely breaching the space between us. There was a hard glint in his eyes, his grip on the paper tightening as he processed its implications. "I don't know, but I think it's connected to the fire," he answered, his voice tinged with urgency. Ethan, sensing the shift in our atmosphere, clutched at my leg tighter, his little body tense against mine. "What if it's not just about the fire? What if?" I hesitated, my breath hitching in my throat. The idea, wild and desperate, clawed at me. "Jack, what if this is about us?" A flicker of confusion crossed his face before it settled into something darker, more serious. "What do you mean?" The rush of words spilled out before I could hold them back. "What if this is tied to our past? My and your history? What if there's someone who knows us, someone who wants to hurt us?" The very thought sent shivers racing down my spine, as every painful memory rose up in my throat. "Luna, we can't let fear take control," Jack replied, his voice steady, though I could hear the undercurrents of anxiety. "We need to focus on Ethan and get away from here." "Mommy?" Ethan's small voice broke through our confrontation, innocent and laced with worry. "What's wrong?" I knelt next to him, forcing a calm I didn't feel. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a little surprise. Let us find a safe place." The words were meant to reassure him, but they felt hollow. He was too young to carry any of this weight, and yet here he was, trapped in our storm. But the reality pulled at us, heavier with each passing moment. There's a crowd gathering over there. Let us just not there, Jack interrupted, determination flickering in his eyes. We need to keep moving. Come on. Together, we started stepping back, trying to shield Ethan from the chaos that threatened to envelop us whole. Yet with every distance we covered, the chilling note remained lodged firmly in my mind, far more frightening than the flames that had danced earlier that night. We moved through the throng, a sea of worried faces and ominous shadows. The heart-wrenching cries of parents seeking missing children punctuated the air, each wail a stark reminder of what was at stake. With every step, my heart raced, and a knot tightened in my chest, filled with the fear that each corner we turned could reveal something darker. Ethan suddenly tugged at my hand, pointing toward a nearby cafe that had miraculously escaped the chaos. Bright lights flickered, and a small, warm sign hung invitingly. "Can we go there, Mommy?" he asked, his eyes wide with hope. Before Jack could respond, I nodded, desperate for a moment of normalcy amid the chaos. "Yes, let us go inside for a minute." As we entered, a warm rush of air enveloped us, muffling the sounds outside. The small seating area felt like an oasis, a place where worries seemed temporarily suspended. As we settled around a table by the window, I couldn't shake the weight of the note pressing on my mind. Jack folded the piece of paper, tucking it away, but it loomed over us, a specter threatening to shatter even this fragile escape. What if we don't get out of here soon? What if the danger follows us? I mused aloud, a lump rising in my throat. Jack reached across the table, grabbing my hand and squeezing it gently. "We will figure it out together. I promise. No matter what that paper means, we'll face it as a family." His words were meant to comfort, but dread still wrapped its icy fingers around my heart. I glanced at Ethan, oblivious to the world beyond his bubble, and smiled at him. "You know, sweet pea, you were so brave tonight." "Really?" His face lit up, innocence blossoming under the strain of everything we had witnessed. "Really? You're always brave. Just like a superhero." As he beamed at me, the warmth of his smile pushed momentarily against the chilling grip of fear. But amidst that fleeting moment, a shadow flickered past the window, a figure moving with an urgency that set my nerves on edge. My breath caught as I leaned closer, straining to get a better look. "Luna?" Jack's voice pulled me back as he followed my gaze, concern etched on his face. "Did you see that?" I whispered, heart pounding. "See what?" His frown deepened as I glanced back. But the street was empty now, and the shadows had swallowed the figure whole. "Nothing," I breathed out, shaking, hands trembling against the table. "I don't know, maybe it was just my imagination." "Let us stay alert," he murmured, though I could see his unease mirrored in my own eyes. Just then, a loud crash erupted from outside, followed by a frantic yell. Instinctively, we all turned toward the window in unison, hearts racing. But it was too late. In the distance, a familiar face emerged from the chaos, disheveled and wild-eyed, a face from my past. A ghost I thought I'd escaped. "Luna!" she screamed, and the sound dug into my soul, raw and petrifying. "You need to listen to me. It's not safe." The world around us blurred. My reality splintered, and with every fiber of my being, I felt the ground shift beneath me, chaos threatening to drag us deeper into the abyss. I thought we were only fighting for safety, but as the truth unfurled, I realized we were entangled in a web much darker than I ever imagined, a web that held secrets, lies, and so much more, waiting to ensnare us all. The lights of the cafe flickered around me, momentarily illuminating a haven amidst a swirling storm. But the familiar voice reaching through the glass shattered any sense of peace I had hoped to find. The figure on the street was unmistakable, Natalie, my sister, a woman woven into the fabric of my past that I'd long wished to forget. I felt Jack's grip tighten around my hand, as he instinctively pulled closer to me and Ethan, whose wide eyes darted between the chaotic sounds outside and our increasingly tense expressions. "Luna!" Natalie shouted again, her voice laced with desperation as she fought her way towards the door. "You have to come with me. It's not safe." I recoiled, a rush of emotions crashing over me like waves against a rocky shore. Betrayal, anger, fear. Memories flooded back. The decision that had fractured our family, the secrets I had buried, all vividly alive again. "Why are you here?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper beneath the din of panic outside. Jack glanced at me, concern etching deeper lines on his forehead. "Do you know her?" he asked, as my heart raced. Before I could reply, Natalie crashed through the door, breathless and disheveled. "Breathe, Luna. Please, just listen to me. They're coming for you. They know everything." Ethan, who had been holding my hand, instinctively moved closer to Jack, the tension in the air palpable. "Who is coming?" I demanded, my heart pounding in my throat. "What are you talking about?" "I don't have time to explain everything. Just know that I never wanted to hurt you. I did what I thought was right." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and for a moment, the sister I remembered flickered through the chaos. "Right?" I echoed, and incredulity lacing my tone. "You left me. You chose to turn your back when I needed you the most." Jack's fingers gently squeezed mine, as if to remind me that I was not alone. "We need to leave now," he urged quietly while keeping his gaze fixed on the door, wary of lurking threats. "No! You need to listen to her," Ethan piped up, surprising us both. His innocence washed over the confrontation like a bomb. "Mommy," she looked scared. "Ethan, stay close to me," I said, refusing to let my gaze waver from Natalie's desperate expression. My heart tumbled unceremoniously. He was right. I could see the fear etched in her features, radiating a vulnerability that mirrored my own. "I'm not the same person I was then," Natalie said softly, her voice quivering. "I made mistakes, but I want to help you now. You need to trust me before it's too late." "Trust?" The word tasted bitter on my tongue. "How can I trust you after everything?" Memories of late-night arguments, her betrayal, and shadows that lingered even in my happiest moments surged back to life. "There is so much you don't understand. I didn't fully believe the threats until it was too late. They burned everything to bring you out. It's bigger than me, bigger than all of us. You're in danger, Luna." A moment of silence stretched between us, suffocating and thick. All the anger and grief I had harbored for her over the years felt insignificant in the face of the terror beginning to unfurl in my reality. Jack leaned closer, whispering, "What if it's a trap?" But the desperate flicker in Natalie's eyes compelled me to stay, to listen. "Please," I urged, my heartbeat drowning out everything else. "Just tell me what you know." Outside, the disturbance escalated, a cacophony of sirens, screams, and urgent shouts threatening to crack our fragile bubble even further. I could feel the walls of the cafe closing in, the potential madness creeping nearer. "They're mercenaries, Luna. They think you know something." "The fire?" "It was an accident. They know everything you saw that night," she confessed, inhaling sharply. "They'll stop at nothing to silence you." "What do I know? I was running away from the chaos, just like everyone else." Panic threatened to overtake my voice, but I needed clarity. "Tell me what I should be fearful of." "Your escape is part of it," she said steadily through clenched teeth. "What you witnessed is only the beginning of something more dangerous. You're tangled in something dark, and they've come for you. We have to move now." A scream shattered the atmosphere outside, tension enveloping us. Ethan's eyes widened in fear, and I took a deep breath, gathering the resolve I had tried so hard to muster. "We can't run," I said. "Not again." But inside, I could sense the gnawing fear that had taken root, Jack's eyes darted between me and Natalie, suspicion mingling with desperation. So what do we do? How do we get out of this? A flicker of kindness surged in me, ignited by my memories of times past, the laughter, the shared dreams. Natalie, I don't know if I can forgive you, but if you're telling the truth, I need to protect Ethan. I promise, she whispered, tears glimmering in her eyes. I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe. Suddenly, the door rattled violently, echoing through the cafe like a death knell. My heart dropped to my stomach. What was that? Hide. Jack hissed, urgency written across his face as he looked around for the best place to shield Ethan. No time. We have to stick together, I insisted, fear surging as my heart raced. What is the plan? Follow me, Natalie said, darting towards a door at the back of the cafe. Trust me to take you to safety. The air crackled with an electricity of fear and the faintest glimmer of hope as we moved toward the door. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the moment we stepped through would change everything. What if we stepped out into a path of danger rather than sanctuary? The door creaked open, and as darkness loomed, my heart thumped violently. Stay close, I urged as I glanced back one last time at the cafe that had briefly shielded us from the storm outside. With one deep breath, I stepped into the unknown, a leap of blind faith balancing peril and trust on a razor's edge and feeling the weight of every single decision that led us to this moment. My fate, and that of the ones I loved, hung precariously in the balance. The darkness enveloped us as we slipped through the door into the unseen, yet a small part of me still clung to the fragile hope that Natalie was telling the truth. Each step echoed in the silence, and as we descended into what felt like an abyss, I braced myself against the walls, my heart pounding like a war drum. Jack remained close, a silent comfort that I desperately needed. I could feel his gaze on me, weighing my trust even as shadows of doubt loomed larger with every heartbeat. Please tell me this leads to safety, I whispered, battling the rising tide of fear. Ethan held my hand tightly, a small anchor in a world spun out of control. It does, Natalie replied, her urgency underpinned by something softer, heartbreaking. I wanted so desperately to believe her, yet cautious tendrils of my past tied me to a truth I couldn't ignore. What happened to you? I finally mustered the courage to ask, my voice trembling. Why did you leave me? I thought it would be best for you, she said, pausing to gather her thoughts, her face drawn tight with regret. I was caught up in something that spiraled beyond my control. I didn't know how to protect you, how to free myself from the remnants of the past. I thought by disappearing, I could keep you safe. I was wrong, so painfully wrong. Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears, each word trembling under the weight of her revelation. I felt sympathy pull me in, the aching realization that perhaps I was the only one haunted by the shadows. And now? What happens now? Now? She exhaled heavily, forcing a semblance of composure. Now we must move forward. I need you to trust me, Luna. And there it was again, a flicker of vulnerability mingled with necessity. I'm afraid, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. We all are. But sometimes, facing our fears head-on is the only way to find the light again. The conviction in her voice stirred something deep within me. It reminded me of Jack's unwavering spirit, the strength he had shown that night in the dance and again in the flames. The path twisted and turned, walls closing in, but as we navigated further into the labyrinth of darkness, a soft light flickered in the distance. We're close, Natalie urged gently, picking up the pace, her own resolve renewed. As we approached, the familiar sounds of bustling life pierced the oppressive silence. My heart raced faster. There was no denying that freedom felt tangibly close. Emerging from the cloistered hallway, I squinted against the brightness, the sun spilling into the world as we stepped outside into the open. What now? Jack asked, looking around for any hint of danger lurking in the shadows. The atmosphere was tense, but the brightness offered a new sense of hope. "There's a safe house just down the block," Natalie replied, urgency bubbling under the surface. "We can reach it if we keep moving. It will have shelter and someone who can help." "Can we trust them?" I pressed, a nagging concern clawing for attention. "Yes," she said firmly, locking eyes with me, a spark of hope igniting within the depths of her sorrow. "We can. They've been waiting for your return." A knot of uncertainty twisted in my belly, but Jack's warmth beside me served as a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. Together we took the first step through the potential storm, and as we moved through the open street, the world felt surreal. "Trust me, Luna," Natalie urged again, leading us onward. We rounded a corner, heartbeats blending with the thrumming sound of our footsteps, adrenaline weaving in and out of every breath. But just as that distance stretched before us, I spotted a shadow flicker in my peripheral vision. My heart dropped, time slowed. "Jack," I breathed, panic rising like bile. "Someone is watching." "Where?" He tightened his grip on my arm. "Stay close. Don't let them separate us." But I felt the chill of recognition creeping upward, a dark familiarity lurking in the recesses of my mind. Just then, a voice cut through the air, thick with malice. "You shouldn't have come back, Luna. You think you can run away?" I turned, dread pooling in my gut as my eyes fell upon a figure stepping from the alley, a sinister smirk etched on their face. "I've been waiting for this moment. Waiting for you." "No!" Jack shouted, positioning himself between me and the threat. But the shadow moved fast, lunging toward us faster than I could comprehend. "You're not going anywhere." In a split second, chaos descended. Jack instinctively pushed me back, using his own body to shield both me and Ethan from the attacking figure. Panic erupted, adrenaline pumping through my veins as I fought against the instinct to run. "Get back," he shouted, using every ounce of strength to hold them off. "Luna, go," Jack commanded, his voice dripping with urgency. But I couldn't abandon him to face this danger alone. This was our fight, our truth, and I needed to embrace that. "No!" I yelled, fear coursing through me like electricity. "We will fight." In a surge of courage, I stepped forward. "Get away from him," I shouted, summoning the remnants of strength I had left, and lunged, ready to defend the only family I had left. Just as I neared, a fierce struggle ensued. The world blurred around us. The only thing that occupied my mind was pushing back against that figure, reclaiming the strength that had been stolen from us. Jack fought valiantly, his determination colliding with their aggression, a fierce storm of wills refusing to yield. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his voice trembling, but in that cry, I felt the fierce blaze of love ignite, propelling me forward. And at that moment, we fought together, Jack's strength alongside mine, our hearts tethered in a battle that felt like it was forged in destiny. Just as I caught the figure's wrist, flipping them backward, pivoting my stance for the next move, the air flickered with uncertainty. But victory flashed in our eyes the moment that unmistakable sound broke through the sirens of the police blaring as they approached. In the blink of an eye, help poured onto the scene, a formation of authority piercing through the shadows that had contorted our lives for too long. In the flurry of chaos, as the figures staggered to their feet, reality struck me with electric clarity. Natalie hadn't lied. We could break free from these chains of fear. "Arrest them," Jack shouted, pushing back against the figure with renewed strength as officers swarmed the street. Within moments, the shadow vanished into the crowd of uniforms, the threat ebbing into nothing. Breathless, we stood there, stunned in the aftermath of our skirmish. "Jack," I breathed, collapsing forward into his waiting arms. I could feel the warmth radiating from him, grounding me in the reality that we had survived another battle together. And at that moment, everything shifted. I looked down at Ethan, his small frame quaking ever so slightly, but his eyes sparkling with tenacity. "We did it!" he exclaimed, his voice ringing with innocent joy. "Yes, we did," I whispered, my heart swelling with pride. I turned to Natalie, the tide of anguish ebbing, realizing that perhaps maybe there was room for forgiveness, room for healing. "I'm sorry, Luna," Natalie said, tears shining in her eyes as she watched us. "For everything. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just scared." "Me too," I admitted, voice trembling. "But we made it through." As the police processed everything, I felt the weight of Burden's past begin to lift, each knot loosening as the dawn of resolution washed over me. The scars would still shimmer in my heart, but they would no longer bind me. I could stand taller in the light, and with each gentle shift in the air, I sensed a burgeoning clarity, a promise of new beginnings. Jack squeezed my hand, and I understood together we could face whatever demons might surface, building bridges over the shadows of our history. As the sun broke free from the clouds, illuminating the path before us, I turned to Jack, a small smile breaking through. "Whatever happens next, I know we'll be all right." And in that moment, I held on to the truth that spread across my heart, a quiet strength, a testament that love, binding us despite all odds, would always triumph against the darkness that threatened to engulf our lives. It was time to write the next chapter together, one filled with laughter, resilience, and the undeniable power of hope. And as the sun rose, glinting through the fragments of our past, I whispered to the winds, "We're just getting started."